You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Hi, I'm Bella Perez Rubio, Puma Podcast, and you're listening to Teka Teka News.
There needs to be a way to be able to rationally regulate and manage all the water resources. It's fragmented also in the sense that water has become very territorial and political. Our water in our city cannot go to the other city. But in reality, watersheds and aquifers, they know no municipal or provincial boundaries.
Big ticket dams are in the pipeline to solve our water woes. Now let's talk about the lives that are being affected by these infrastructure projects.
The water crisis in the Philippines, and I call it a water crisis because it is. And it's something that we have continually postponed. We do not examine it. We do not look at it. Just find other ways and put up with the idea that once in a while we'll have to pull out our buckets and fill our bathtubs with water because there's not going to be water for the next 24 hours.
It's no secret, we're in a water shortage, and we have been for a while now. A mild El Nino in 2019 led to what Manila Water now calls the most challenging year in its history. The water crisis saw thousands of households in Metro Manila lose access to running water. And one solution that's floated again and again is the Kaliwa Dam. That's what we're here to talk about today. Naririnig mo ba ang sigaw ng mga tribong pilit na pinapatahimik? This was the tagline of the documentary, Tulaog, Sigaw ng Mga Nililigaw.
Noon, nag-usap kami, ang amin lang namang hiling, huwag munang ituloy ang ipagproseso ng PIC.
He means NCIP, for National Commission on Indigenous Peoples.
Dahil hindi pa alam ng mga community at pag-uusapan pa ng mga community. Kaya sumagot sa amin ang NCIP, o sige, payag na kami, hindi muna natin itutuloy ang proseso ng NPIC. Yun, umalis na kami, nagkabayan kami at nagpasalamat kaming mga katutulong. Pero nabalita namin sa pangatlong araw, nag-a-assembly na sila ng NPIC at sumira sila doon sa usapan.
You just heard Marcelino Tena. Isa siyang Dumagat elder at tribe leader mula sa General Nakar, Quezon Province. He was speaking at the screening and forum of the documentary hosted by the UP Law Center's Institute of Human Rights. And he was talking about the IP's opposition to the Kaliwa Dam project, a 12.2 billion peso project that is being built by the government to supply water to Metro Manila, and how NCIP officials broke their word.
Ngayon, dito sa panahon ng kami nag-alay laban, kami sinasabi mga terorista. Ganito po yan. Maganda siguro nung una pa. Dahil hindi namin alam ang batas Ibra.
IPRA stands for Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act.
Hindi namin alam yung aming mga karapatang katutulong. Hindi namin alam ang pakikipaglaban sa lupain nila.
The Dumagat-Remontados are an indigenous group who have lived in Sierra Madre Mountains for centuries. They are a small group with only about 20,000 people remaining. IP groups say the dam project will destroy the Sierra Madre Mountain range, which is their home and their life. Thousands of people from these 4 towns will be directly affected, apart from the environmental damage it will cause. The thing is, the water level of Angat Dam in Norzagay, Bulacan, which is the main source of water supply for Metro Manila and nearby provinces, started receding slowly in August of this year.
Yung mga lugar po na maapektuhan, ito po yung ilang mga customers namin sa Caloocan, sa Malabon, sa Navotas, sa Valenzuela, sa Manila at saka sa Quezon City. So nakalimit po dito sa mga lugar na to ang aming regular water interruption o 6 na syudad dito sa Metro Manila. At sila po yung normally naapektuhan dahil sila yung mga malalayo or tsaka matataas na lugar dun sa aming concession areas.
That's how engineer Ronald Padua explains the water crisis. He's water supply operations head at Maynilad.
Kapag bumaba sa below 180 meters yung level ng tubig sa Dumagat Dam, ay kinakailangan pong ibaba ang alokasyon ng MWSS to 48 cubic meter per second mula sa dating 50 cubic meter per second. Ito pong kondisyon na to o yung pagbaba po ng level ng Angat sa 180 meters and right there and then po kinailangan din po talagang ibaba na rin to 48 cubic meter per second yung alokasyon sa MWSS. Of course, ito po is mas higit na mas mababa dun sa 52 cubic meter per second. Kung natatandaan ninyo, ito po yung nagiging release dito sa MWSS starting nung April 17.
Ito na ang nagiging narrative. The water needs of Metro Manila versus the interests of the distant Dumagat-Remontados people. And government is perceived to be pushing one side without paying much mind to the other. The opposition to the Kaliwa Dam culminated in a 9-day march by around 300 Dumagat-Remontado indigenous people who walked from General Nakar in Quezon to Malacanang Palace in Metro Manila. They say that was when the propaganda against them started, when things started to turn political. Their march to defend the environment has turned into accusations of their working with communist rebels.
Ang sinasabi, ang nadidinig namin ay kami daw ay mga inutusan at binayaran ng pera para gawin ito. At inutusan daw po kami ng mga grupo o ibang mga tao para magmarcha kami papuntang Manila. Hindi po yung totoo, yun po ay isang kabulaanan. Dahil kung bakit po nagkameron ng marcha, nag-usap po yung mga matatanda at mga pamunuan nung tatlong pamayan ng direktang lulubog kapag itinayo yung Kaliwa Dam.
Yan naman si William Quieres, isang traditional Dumagat leader. After the 9-day walk to Manila, hundreds of Dumagat-Remontados and their allies were left disappointed. They were not able to meet and dialogue with President Bongbong Marcos Jr. The group was hoping for an earnest exchange with the president to ask him to put a stop on the construction of the Kaliwa Dam, which will destroy their ancestral land. But after covering over 100 kilometers, they walked back home empty-handed, without so much as a meet and greet with the chief executive. Dahil para kina Marcelino at William, hindi lang siya usaping tubig. For them, the dam puts their homes, their way of life, and their culture at stake. We need to get this out of the way early on. It's not just a place to live, and it's more than just their shelter and livelihood. It's religion, culture, tradition. Para sa kanila, ang lupa ay buhay.
Ang sinisigaw lang po namin na ayaw namin sa dam sapagkat buhay at saka kinabukasan po yung nakasalalay. Sisiraanin po nito yung ating kalikasan. Dahil sa kaming mga katutubo ay ang paniniwala namin ay hindi po sa dam nang gagaling yung ating tubig na iniinom. Ang iniinom po nating tubig ay nanggagaling sa mayamang kalikasan na daang limang taon ng pinangalagaan ng aming mga ninuno.
The Dumagat-Remontados have been protesting the construction of the dam for years. They have filed lawsuits, held protests, and even blocked construction workers from entering the area. Eventually, nag-assembly nga sila kasama ang National Commission on Indigenous People o NCIP. But a lot of decisions were made for them, their input set aside. From the start, cards were stacked against them in those talks. More on that after a quick break.
Number one, we have stopped building major water infrastructure since the last one was in 2003 na it nag-operate, San Roque. Pero it started way back in Ramos. Of course, water governance is very disjointed. Di ko alam kung saan kumukuha ng mga mandato ang naggumagawa ng dam. Pangatlo, water capture systems are not resilient. In fact, most dams are in areas with a dry season for half the year. Wow. So they're very susceptible to El Nino, mostly here in central and northern Luzon.
You just heard Representative Joey Salceda at a public forum, pointing out that water governance in the country is disorganized, kalat-kalat, ni hindi alam kung sino ang accountable sa paggawa ng mga dam. Ito pang isa. Who really benefits from the construction of Kaliwa Dam? Would it actually solve the water crisis? Diba? If dams are in areas that are dry for 6 months a year, wise use of limited resources ba ang mga ito? Meron pang consensus building na hindi nangyayari. You can't put a deadline on consensus building. Kaya nga consensus, diba? Ibig sabihin, pinag-uusapan yan. At sabi ng mga taong nakatira sa tatayuan ng Kaliwa Dam, hindi pa nangyayari yun. It's for this reason too, na wala na rin silang tiwala sa NCIP, which puts unnecessary tension in future talks. There's also the question of the NCIP representing. By the way, presidential appointees ang mga namumuno sa National Commission on Indigenous Peoples. Sa totoo lang, it's a real dilemma. And for the people who regard the mountains of Sierra Madre their home, there's real anguish. It's hard to find a solution to the water crisis and the destruction of the environment and the indigenous people's home that works for everyone. But at the forum, Teddy Bagilat, an indigenous people's advocate and himself an IP, pointed out a very crucial fact. We haven't tried other solutions. Some of them are doable too.
Actually, meron pang isang dam na ginagawa na ngayon, ongoing sa Wawa, which is in Antipolo. So, mang-ayon na yung mga IPs doon because mga migrants na actually yung mga andam. Pero that was also part of the ancestral lands of the indigenous people. So, kay Razon ito, no, that's going to provide additional 25% yata ng water supply ng Metro Manila.
We can also learn from our neighbors in Asia.
May an alternative proposal sa Japan. Ito yung mga mini hydros. So runoff lang siya, hindi siya yung dambuhalang dam na talagang maraming malulubog. Mga mini hydros ito series. Kasi mahaba naman yung Kaliwa Dam. Ang nababalitaan pa is pag matuloy itong Kaliwa Dam, meron pa mga sumusunod na mga dams, di ba?
Environmental groups have also called for improving governance frameworks, including policies, regulations, and institutions to ensure sustainable management of water resources. There's also leak detection and repair to think about. Again, a doable proposal. A significant portion of Metro Manila's water supply is lost due to leaks in the distribution system. Addressing this issue by identifying and repairing leaks can help conserve water and reduce demand. Listen to Undersecretary for Integrated Environmental Science, CP David, explain it.
I've been working with the teams from Manila Water and Maynilad also here with us today, to start plugging some of the leaks that are actually not anymore the responsibility of the concessionaires because these are leaks after the meter, and therefore it's the responsibility really of these facilities, but they do not have those capabilities.
And so we leave you with that same question again. Naririnig mo ba ang sigaw ng mga tribong pilit na pinapatahimik? Again, you can't rush genuine consent. Here's Teddy Bagilat again.
Dapat decision and consensus nga. So if it takes 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, ganun talaga mag-decision minsan ng mga katutubo. It can be very fast, it could be 1 day, depende sa itsura ng buwan, depende sa anong sinabi ng kanilang mga Panginoon. Ganon mag-desisyon. Pero huwag ipipilit ang isang bureaucratic process doon sa decision-making. Doon nagkakaroon ng problema. Kasi iba nga yung may loss in translation doon sa traditional governance at ilalagay mo siya into a bureaucratic procedure.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka News. I'm Bella Perez Rubio. This episode was written by Franco Luna and edited by Pidoy Blanco. If you like this episode, share it with a friend or two And of course, don't forget to follow Teka Teka News and Puma Podcast on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. Thanks for listening.